5 minutes to go to the start of the 44-lap Belgian Grand Prix of 1994 on this magnificent 4.35-mile-long Spa-Francorchamps circuit, a real test for driver and for car. Now, let me finish talking about that likely scenario I started talking about earlier on. The possible scenario in this race with Barrichello there in pole position for the first time in his life, having a clear track in front of him before La Source, as has Michael Schumacher, don't forget, because although on the staggered grid he is slightly behind Barrichello, he is nevertheless facing a clear track. Now, a likely scenario is that Schumacher, with superior power, with greater experience and probably a more settled mind than Barrichello, who's got this enormous pressure on him, may sprint into the lead by La Source. It's conceivable that Rubens Barrichello could pull in behind the Benetton and slow things up a bit and make it difficult for Damon Hill, with the superior power of the Williams-Renault, to get past him. In which case, Michael Schumacher would be able to pull away, as he has done so very often before this season, and has achieved 7 Grand Prix victories as a result of it. Don't forget also that Michael Schumacher and the Benetton team have got considerable pressure, because coming up for Michael Schumacher next Tuesday is an appeal in Paris against the 2-race ban that was given to him for ignoring the checkered flag at the British Grand Prix. And on September the 7th, the Benetton team are going to be appearing in front of the World Council, no less, of the FIA, hopefully from their point of view to answer successfully for the fact that they removed the fuel filter illegally from their refueling rig at Hockenheim. Now, no one is accusing them of causing the fire as a result of that. It was an unhappy coincidence. The fact is, however, that they broke the rules and have got to answer for it, and there are all sorts of potential penalties. So Schumacher too has got considerable pressure. This is a 44-lap race. It's going to be hard for the drivers, hard for the cars, hard for the brakes, hard for the gearboxes, and especially hard for Rubens. So before they get away and go round La Source and give you a view of the new Eau Rouge, which, instead of being taken as a right-handed downhill, uphill, 180-mile-an-hour, hair-raising, breathtaking bend, is now taken from having slowed down from over 180 miles an hour, gone down to second gear, gone left, rolled right at about 50 miles an hour, and then you need all the engine power and torque you can get to get up the hill, which leads away from the lowest point up towards Les Combes, and that's where the Williams-Renaults and the Ferraris should benefit, theoretically, from their superior engine power. From then on, it's twists and turns all the way round. Some wonderful corners, Malmedy, the right-hander, Rivage, another right-hander, then the 160-mile-an-hour pull into the sweeping S-bend at Fargne, on to Stavelot, and that's where the shortened Belgian Grand Prix 4.3 miles, 5 miles circuit joins the old one on the run up to Blanchimont, which is a 160-mile-an-hour long left-hander, which leads into the notorious bus stop, which is a second gear, left, right, very, very short straight, right, left, chicane, out of that and through to complete the lap. And for those of you that are used to watching the Belgian Grand Prix, I'll tell you that the entry to the pit lane has now been changed, and if you're coming into the pits now during the race, you will not go round the bus stop. You will peel off before it and drive straight into the pit lane. It's going to take about 22 seconds, we think, extra time if you make a pit stop, and that will have affected the tyre and refueling strategies of the teams, which any moment are going to be getting away on that formation lap. And remember what happened to Michael Schumacher as a result of passing Damon Hill there, 0 on the formation lap in Britain.
And away they go up to the first La Source hairpin. Now this is this very tight second gear, 35 miles an hour hairpin. That's going to be a traffic jam for sure on the first lap. Brunzerader there, the official starter, waving the green flag, this being the formation lap. in which they're warming up tyres and brakes. Coming down, now this is the new Eau Rouge chicane. It used to flow straight on. Look now, it dives left, then right, second gear. Then the drivers have to put the power down as carefully as they can. 750 horsepower is certainly more than enough to spin those wheels as they come up over the brow at Radillon. This is the longest straight on the circuit. It's actually quite uphill, and you can just see there Rubens Barrichello wisely swerving from side to side gently, getting some heat into those tyres. It must be quite an amazing feeling for him now, being out there. He will have never experienced this feeling before of being at the head of a queue. He'll feel very proud indeed, and for a man of just 22 years old, it's certainly been a great achievement. Achievement that's probably as much due to the team strategy as his own driving, although to take nothing away from Rubens Barrichello. Down to the second gear Rivage corner. This is the new part of the circuit, which incidentally has been resurfaced, over 2/3 of it, which is another factor why the tyre company do not know, and the teams do not know just how the tyres are going to wear. Coming down, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, they'll be doing 170 miles an hour, and a little bit disorientating there as we get a little bit of an idea of just how quickly these cars can swerve, but that is nothing compared to the forces which they'll be subjected to when they get underway, particularly here. Cahoon, one of the fastest corners on the circuit, 130 miles an hour through that fourth gear, fifth gear, sixth gear to 180, then down to third gear, the right-hander chicane at Spagna, and then left, 100 miles an hour, hard on the power they'll be when they're really underway, and then up to fourth, and then down to third gear. We're getting towards the end of the new part of the circuit, and through the Rivage corner at 80 miles an hour. Now here is where the circuit, the new purpose-built circuit, joins the old road section through Stavelot, fourth gear, 130 miles an hour, then there'll be fifth, sixth, and approaching the fastest corner of all. This is Blanchimont. The cars will be pulling up to 185 miles an hour, and here he goes. Barrichello, see that big runoff area there? A lot of focus now, of course, on safety, and here we are approaching Blanchimont. Still Barrichello warming up the tyres, and he's going to be concentrating very hard indeed to make sure that he doesn't fluff this start. It's the most important start of his career, and he'll just want to make it clean. That's the important part. Hard on the brakes here. Now this comes down to the bus stop chicane. The cars will this year, as Murray's just said, go straight on to go to the pits, but not this time. Left through into the bus stop chicane. The cones there just to demarcate how much curve anyone's prepared to let you use. And out of the bus stop, second gear, 100 miles an hour into third, and finally up to the grid.
For the first time in his life, Rubens Barrichello proudly leads a Grand Prix grid up to their starting positions. He is starting from the top right of the grid, which therefore means he'll be on the left-hand side of your picture. To your right, Michael Schumacher, and then behind Rubens Barrichello, you can see Damon Hill as Eddie Irvine pulls into position behind Schumacher. Mika Häkkinen is back in this race, of course, having done his one-race ban in Hungary for a transgression at the British Grand Prix, and incidentally, Philippe Alliot has replaced Olivier Beretta in the La Rousse 4 just for this one race only. Christian Fittipaldi, who just scrambled, you can see him in the background there in the yellow helmet in the footwork car, he just managed to scramble onto the grid in 24th position, having failed to qualify on Friday. He was the only person who went faster yesterday. But now I think they are all in position for the start of the 44-lap Belgian Grand Prix. And it's a good start by Barrichello, and he cuts off Michael Schumacher, who tries to dodge to the left, but Barrichello leads into La Source with Schumacher trying to go around the outside of him, and down to Eau Rouge on lap 1. Barrichello leads. Now this is against expectations. Schumacher is second. Up into third place has come the Ferrari, and ahead of Damon Hill. So that's a Lacey up into third place. Damon Hill is down into fourth place. Verstappen is fifth. David Coulthard, there he is in sixth position, ahead of Eddie Irvine and the McLaren, and then Heinz-Harald Frentzen, followed by Mika Häkkinen. Now this is coming up to Les Combes, and there you can see the Ferrari of Alesi as Schumacher takes the lead at the right-hander, and Alesi was using the superior power of the Ferrari. That's Mika Häkkinen to close right up on Rubens Barrichello's Jordan. So now as expected. Michael Schumacher leads. Rubens Barrichello is second. In third position, the Ferrari of Frenchman Jean Alesi, who started fifth on the grid and has already gained 2 places in the first half of the first lap. Damon Hill has therefore dropped down a place. There he is, as you see him go round the left-hander. Now they're on their way down to Farnia and the Stavelot corner, which is coming up to complete the new part of the Belgian Grand Prix circuit. That's Farnia, and here's a replay.
Now look at that red Ferrari on the left-hand side of Jean Alesi. He's the real fast starter. Barrichello makes a clean start. Schumacher has a look at the inside, but then Alesi comes up the inside of Damon Hill there on the brakes, cleanly out-brakes him. But look at that wheel locking. He's locking a wheel, gets inside Eddie Irvine. Great start there from Jean Alesi. And what's also great is that this time the whole start and the whole progress of the field through La Source was clean.
And an excellent start, incidentally, by Jos Verstappen. Now, Michael Schumacher is doing exactly what you would expect him to do as Alesi comes through and takes second position away from Barrichello. Now the Belgian Grand Prix is on because we have the experience and the skill of Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford ahead of the experience and skill of Jean Alesi in the more powerful Ferrari. That is Mika Häkkinen, and Häkkinen is in about 6th or 7th place. Now, that's a replay. You see as they come up to the bus stop, hard on the brakes, Alesi goes to second, Barrichello to third, Hill is fourth, and I do believe Coulthard, yes he is in 5th position, ahead of Mika Häkkinen 6th, Verstappen 7th, Eddie Irvine 8th, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen 9th.
And that just then was very determined driving by Jean Alesi, and quite right too, but also very mature driving from Barrichello. He knows, and the team knows too, that the chances of them winning this race on performance is virtually nil. What is important though is that Barrichello does not come unstuck. He does not get anybody irritated behind him, irritable behind him, so he needs to keep it clean. As Mark Blundell struggles to try and find a way around Martini there in the Minardi.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to see some of the helmet camera shots from Mark Blundell's head, because he's literally had a tiny camera attached to it in practice, and we got some marvellous pictures. But here is race leader Michael Schumacher on lap 2. At the end of the first lap, he led Alesi by 2.47 seconds. Look for the Ferrari, that is it. And you can see that already there's quite a gap developed between Alesi, who we are riding with now, as he comes up to Blanchimont. He's doing here about 185 miles an hour, coming up to the bus stop very shortly as he goes round the 2/3 distance on the lap, with Schumacher leading, Alesi second, Barrichello holding a good third position ahead of Damon Hill, David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen, top 6.
Now we shouldn't forget now that for all of these drivers, this represents the first time they will have driven these cars on a dry track here at Spa. And the master of reading new track conditions, and this therefore is a new track condition, is Michael Schumacher, and he is streaking away. 2.5 seconds in just 1 lap. That's the sort of pace that doesn't surprise me, but I think also it indicates that he's now done a lap in 2 minutes dead. We're just establishing now what the dry time is, that we could be looking at a 2-stop strategy here for Schumacher, which will mean the first stop round about lap 12, just 10 laps away.
And he's increased that gap to 4.2 seconds at the end of 2 laps. And as you can see, Rubens Barrichello there in the Jordan is being caught, and that's a Ferrari out of the race. It's Alesi out of the Belgian Grand Prix. Oh, well, there have been rumours that Alesi was going to leave Ferrari. This won't please him. And this, of course, has increased the gap between Michael Schumacher and the new second-place man.
Well, clearly some little bit of smoke coming from the back of Alesi's Ferrari then, so it looks a mechanical problem, probably engine. A great, great shame for Jean Alesi.
So, Michael Schumacher leads. Now, what is the gap going to be? Where is the new second-place man going to be in relation to him? And Schumacher is already going to be starting to think about reliability and pacing himself. He's won 7 races this year. I told you earlier on, his 2-race ban is being examined next Tuesday. What he wants to do is to get the maximum number of points in this race. And you can see, look at the enormous time before the new second-place man comes through, and the new second-place man is Damon Hill. So, Damon Hill has got past Rubens Barrichello. Alesi is out. But there's going to be, at my guess, some 7...
reason that does make any sense for Barrichello's relative lack of performance, and indeed Eddie Irvine, although historically the Jordan team have selected different strategies for each of their drivers. Now, if they're going to make one stop, they're going to be coming in around about lap 20, lap 22. And certainly fuel load does make quite a difference around here. But I do find it surprising that the Jordan team would opt to go for a relatively conservative one-stop strategy, which would obviously make the car slow in the early stages, and therefore risk squandering the benefit of being on pole position.
Yeah, and look, you see Berger on the left, darts out and tries to take Frentzen. The Ferrari is not running at all well. Gerhard started well down the grid, wasn't able to get his car right. Now this is Johnny Herbert locking up his tyres in the Lotus with the too heavy Mugen V10 engine. Indeed, not only locking up his tyres, I would like to have seen the end of that replay to see whether it finished off the track. But anyway, Herbert was right down in 20th position, looking for better things from Monza onwards as we ride on the Benetton of Jos Verstappen, who is in 6th position, chasing Rubens Barrichello, and they are down now on the section of the track at Barnia. This is the left-hander at Barnia, coming up to the right-hander, which leads into Stavolo, and he's doing, I would think, about 95 miles an hour as he turns into the corner.
And while that's going on, Michael Schumacher is relentlessly pulling away from Damon Hill. He's now 12 seconds ahead. He's lapping around about 1 second a lap faster. And let's just hope that Damon is the one going for one stop and Schumacher is going for 2 stops. If that's the case, that could mean that they are roughly comparable. And that's Frentzen, and he successfully got by Verstappen there. Good clean move by the German driver Frentzen, making very good use of that Sauber Mercedes here.
Lap 7, race order. Michael Schumacher leads the Belgian Grand Prix, 12.3 seconds ahead of Damon Hill, who is 3 seconds ahead of his teammate David Coulthard. In 4th position is Mika Häkkinen, 3 seconds behind Coulthard, and 6 seconds ahead of 5th place Rubens Barrichello. Frentzen is now in 6th position, Verstappen is 7th, Berger is 8th and seemingly not able to close up. Eddie Irvine is in 9th place, Martin Brundle is 10th and Blundell is 11th.
Well, Brundle might not be 10th because it looked to me like he may have just managed to squeeze by Eddie Irvine. No, he did not. We just saw him again there, but Brundle had to go to get past Eddie Irvine at the very place that Frentzen overtook Verstappen. So clearly, into the bus stop is at the moment the most popular overtaking site.
And I said I had joy in my heart when this race began. I still have, because it's getting very, very hot now. The track is warming up. That means to say that the grip will be increasing. It means to say that the speeds will be increasing. The lap times will be decreasing. And the question in the Belgian Grand Prix now, of course, is what, as ever, are the refueling and tyre strategies? There's Barrichello, and behind Barrichello, expect them to be stopping 3 times. It's Damon Hill coming in. Damon Hill coming in from 2nd place for what I presume is, well, obviously is his first tyre stop. We don't know whether there's going to be 1 more or 2 more. Up goes the hydraulic lift. And you can see that the mechanics have got helmets on. The ones who are dealing with the Robbie Tyres, who's dealing with the refueling. 8.8 seconds.
Well, that was a good clean stop by the Williams team, but I'm afraid it does not look particularly impressive for Damon's prospects as a whole, because Schumacher has stayed out longer. That means that Schumacher must have been carrying more fuel as Martin Brundle comes in for his stop.
And into 2nd place has gone David Coulthard. So tyre stops so far: Fittipaldi, Häkkinen, Blundell, Damon Hill, Martin Brundle, and there's the Ferrari going off the track at the bus stop. And and it almost collecting the McLaren as it comes in. And that, of course, is Gerhard Berger, because Alesi was out of the race some time ago, and it looks as though it's going to be another bad race for Maranello. That's a pity.
Well, it certainly has been, but it could be a few problems from that too, because there's definitely a large streak of oil being laid by that Ferrari rounding the chicane. I suspect we shall see the oil flags out, and that could well make that all-important overtaking braking zone into the bus stop really very slippery indeed.
Now, we're on lap 13. Remember that the positions are changing all the time now because of refueling of tyres, but as of now, Schumacher is leading Coulthard by 17 seconds. David is 6 seconds ahead of Damon Hill, who has tyre stopped. Barrichello is up into 4th place, but he's 14 seconds behind Hill. Verstappen is 5th. Berger is out of the race. Häkkinen has stopped for tyres and is now in 6th position. Eddie Irvine plugging away is in 7th place, and that is the Larousse of Eric Comas touring along. Yeah, sorry, I'd forgotten Philippe Alliot. Philippe Alliot, the replacement for Olivier Beretta. and replacement who's now out of the race and into the pits for his tyre stop comes second place man David Coulthard. That will let Damon Hill back into second position. You see the self-explanatory words on the board there which are telling him what to do, and Coulthard out.
Well, it's my guess, looking at the length of these pit stops, around about 8 seconds, that they are in fact early, one of two. There's Gerhard Berger walking back. Now, it's sad for Berger, apart from the obvious reason of the fact that he's out of the race, because I think he'd taken a one-stop strategy. I think that Ferrari was running on a relatively slow pace because he was carrying a lot of fuel.
Lap 15, and in comes Ukyo Katayama, and indeed that Yamaha V10 sounds very rough, so that must be a characteristic of the Armco, which is between us and the cars as they come into the pits. Coulthard right with Barrichello now. So Barrichello second, Coulthard third, Damon Hill in fourth place. Hakkinen has rejoined, of course, he's in fifth place. Verstappen is sixth, Eddie Irvine is seventh, Brundle is eighth. Blundell is in ninth position now that Katayama has come into the pits. And we're coming up to the bus stop again.
And what we'd really like to see now is that Jordan of Barrichello remaining out for certainly another 6 laps, because if he can do that, that means he's running for just one refueling, retiring stop, and that means his performance is all the more creditable. And I think looking at it, he would be in by now. If he doesn't stop this lap, then I think that's what they're doing, and that means that his performance is going to put him very much in, potentially, with the Williams cars of Coulthard and Hill, and particularly Hakkinen.
Ron Dennis, the McLaren boss, looking over his shoulder towards the end of the lap, probably wondering when Mika Hakkinen is coming through. He's in 5th place, or Martin Brundle is in 8th position. Still a long way to go, 30 laps. We've just done about 1/3 of the 44-lap race. As up to the bus stop comes Damon Hill in 4th position, and he's certainly not making up any ground on David Coulthard ahead of him. This is La Source coming up. Turn in. Now you can either take a very tight line or go extremely wide, and here is Jos Verstappen into the pits in 6th position. So that means to say that all the leaders will have, that's an earthing strip, you saw him drive over there to earth into the static electricity in the car. Eddie Irvine was right behind Verstappen. That's an excellent stop, 7.1 seconds, and that means he's taken on, I would guess, about 80 litres of fuel, as well as the 4 wheels and tyres, because the fuel rate is 12 litres per second. And you saw the Yamaha, the Tyrrell Yamaha coming out of La Source as Verstappen rejoined. We're on lap 16 out of 44 now, 2.7 seconds as you see between David Coulthard and that's his teammate Damon Hill, 4th position.
And a teammate there, Coulthard, who really is giving Damon Hill a lot of pressure, because Damon should be fighting with Michael Schumacher, certainly not with his relatively inexperienced teammate. Don't forget that Coulthard begins
in London. The gap is 17 seconds between them and Schumacher. Hakkinen is 4th, Brundle is 5th, Verstappen is 6th, and Blundell is 7th.
Well, certainly Coulthard isn't holding up Damon Hill for lack of pace, because he's actually maintained and in fact reduced the gap. It's now down to 16 seconds from Schumacher, so he really is charging hard, and that of course may well, as we saw Hakkinen come in for that, I'm sure this must be, as we've said, the second of 3 stops there, and that's why you see the mechanic pulling out muck from the radiators. The radiators get full up of bits of tyre debris, bits of paper, and that can reduce the cooling critically. Good quick stop from Hakkinen there. You see the white paper labels on the tyres, but of course don't forget that he had less fuel on board to go back into, so it really should have been a quick stop.
And David Coulthard has just gone past Andrea de Cesaris in 14th position in the Sauber Mercedes to lap him. And he's sandwiched, well, what? No, he still is sandwiched by the 2 Williams, because he moved across just as Damon Hill tried to get through on the inside. And that's giving David Coulthard the opportunity to stretch the gap between himself and his teammate Damon Hill, who's still stuck behind de Cesaris. Not anymore. He goes through, the back steps out momentarily. That was a close one for Damon. And it's lap 26 now. Now, I haven't mentioned that Eddie Irvine is in 7th place. Now, Martin Brundle, 8th. Olivier Panis is in 9th position. And the leaders have lapped everybody up to Michele Alboreto, who is in 12th position. They've lapped Fittipaldi, De Cesaris, Bernard, David Brabham, who's still running in the Simtek, 16th, as is Jean-Marc Gounon, 17th. Is 5th, Irvine is 6th, Blundell is 7th. Into the bus stop go the 2 Williams. I missed who they were behind, but as they exit the bus stop, we join the Williams, and Coulthard goes through and puts behind him Martini, and that will delay Damon Hill. So this is giving Coulthard the opportunity to pull away a bit. Schumacher leading then. The gap now is 10.5 seconds, and actually Michael Schumacher's previous lap was a second faster than Coulthard. There's Damon Hill, stuck still behind Luigi Martini, and no doubt fuming.
Yes, and David Coulthard driving there with great conviction. As look at that power. Just look at the way that Williams car goes by the Minardi, as one would expect, but that will inevitably have lost Damon a second over the gap behind David Coulthard. He was just half a second behind him at the start of the previous lap. It's almost sure to have extended. But David Coulthard really has got the bit between his teeth, and without question, this is the best race this year for the Williams team. Not only have they got both drivers battling up there in 2nd and 3rd place, but they've also are closing, certainly within reasonable grasp of the leader of Schumacher.
Schumacher's put up the fastest lap of the race on lap 17, about 6 seconds slower than the fastest lap last year, which was put up by Alain Prost. That's De Cesaris walking in. But that 6 seconds is accounted for by all sorts of things. The fact that the engines are effectively producing less power because of those holes in the airbox, because of that 10mm wooden plank. That's Olivier Panis from 8th position in the pits in the Ligier. That wooden plank reduces downforce by increasing ride height.
And Panis has stalled. I think Panis there losing precious time. He stalled the engine, and that's going to cost him certainly a place or two.
So now,
McLaren Peugeot, it's getting stronger all the time. Martin, thank you. Thank you.
Well, you saw there was a Simtek out there, and it was the Simtek of David Brabham, because there is Jean-Marc Gounon being lapped again. So there are, the retirements are building up. There's 15 drivers left now, including the disappearance of David Brabham. And David Coulthard, under pressure, is resisting it manfully. He's come into Formula One by way of Formula 3000, by way of Formula 3, and he won the Macau Grand Prix, and he won the Masters Formula 3 event, and those are the 2 blue-ribboned events in Formula 3, so he did extremely well there. He was in the Vauxhall Lotus Championship before that, did well, and is a multiple Scottish kart champion, so he's had perfect grooming for the position that he's in now. There's Martin Brundle, you just heard from him.
Yes, indeed, and how refreshing too to hear a driver admitting that he simply made a mistake. It's a very difficult thing to do, particularly when in a team like McLaren, indeed any team, a driver making a mistake is not the kind of thing which is accepted readily. But of course it does happen, but great credit to Martin there for admitting it.
Yes, I'm looking at lap times now, and Schumacher in the lead by 10.5 seconds on lap 34 from Coulthard. Is actually lapping a second a lap slower if the last lap is anything to go by, but then you never know what the traffic situation is, and you can see that the traffic situation as far as Coulthard and Hill, as Tom Walkinshaw and Flavio Briatore watch the proceedings in the Benetton pit, the traffic condition for these two is very intense indeed. Leading through the Eau Rouge, the new Eau Rouge, leading Damon Hill is David Coulthard. We're on his car now, accelerating. It's quite a steep climb, this, I can tell you, if you try to walk it, up to Les Combes at about 185 miles an hour. Then it's knock it back into second at about 80 miles an hour, turn into the right, then the left-hander, what they are at now, into the right-hander at Malmedy. This is it. Accelerate up to about 155 miles an hour, back to second gear for the right-hander, 60 miles an hour on the apex at Rivage, then up through the gears again to 175 miles an hour out of this left-hander, Now the long left at Poole, where there is about 2.9 G on the drivers. This is about 140 mile an hour corner and building to 160 miles out of it now to Farnham, the right and left right S-bend. 100 miles an hour, third gear, down to the bottom part. This is the lowest part of the circuit that they're approaching now. The right-hander at Stavelot, which follows the one that we have just gone round, and it's out of Stavelot in fifth gear, up into sixth. There's the old circuit coming in on the left. I'll tell you when I see it. It's gone through. We're in Blanchimont now, doing 185 miles an hour. In the second car on the race, that of David Coulthard, and 1 second behind us is Damon Hill, and we are catching the Ligier, I think it is, in front of us.
Yes, that's Olivier Panis in front of David Coulthard there. And that's going to be quite tricky for Coulthard because the Ligier runs the same engine, and that means that on the straights it really shouldn't be too much slower than the Williams car, but hopefully Ligier have opted to run more wing to make their car competitive, and that should enable the Williams car to be quicker. That's what Coulthard needs. He really cannot afford to drop back from Schumacher. He's now just 8.9 seconds behind, and he really will smell that this is his best ever chance of winning a Grand Prix. He'll know that he's done a very good job holding off Damon Hill. Quite what Damon Hill thinks we don't know and can only wonder, but can't help but feel. And that was Coulthard straight by Panis there into the Eau Rouge chicane. Hill comes alongside to continue his pursuit of David Coulthard, but I really can't help feeling that Damon Hill must feel that he could go a little quicker, and that's meant to be of no disrespect to Coulthard's effort, and that Hill would have the better chance. That's Patrick Head, who's the, maybe they are discussing team tactics now. Patrick Head, the technical director of the Williams team, they will know that this is their best chance of winning a Grand Prix, certainly since the last Grand Prix in Britain when Damon Hill won at Silverstone.
Yes, one wonders whether Patrick is saying we really must tell David to let Damon through. By Coulthard behind him, and the knowledge that's a replay of Damon Hill going through at Blanchimont and taking second place from his teammate David Coulthard. Now he's on a charge and he has got 7 laps left.
Certainly, my first thought there was that, and Coulthard's coming into the pits, I think he's got a problem, because unless he gave way to Hill from team orders, and doesn't look like that was it, I think maybe Coulthard has a problem.
Well, I always say the engine sounds rough, but it sounded rough there. It's a rear wing problem. Look at the mechanics at the back of the car. Oh, well, one's heart goes out to David Coulthard. He has driven an immaculate race. I remember Prost had a rear wing mounting brake, and I'm just trying desperately to remember where it was. Monaco. He had a rear wing mounting brake. That's Patrick Head. Patrick Head has looked at it, and I think he said send him out. He has said send him out. And Coulthard goes out now. Is he going to be in front of Häkkinen, or will the Finn and the McLaren Peugeot have moved up into third place? If he has, that could mean the third podium finish for the McLaren Peugeot partnership in 1994. Lap 38, Schumacher leads Hill, and the gap now, there is Häkkinen, and Coulthard has joined behind Häkkinen, so Mika is up into third place, but only just, and he's behind Jean-Marc Gounod in the Simtech Ford, who is in 13th place. His teammate David Brabham is out. Häkkinen laps Gounod. Coulthard laps Gounod. There's the Minardi behind them, but that doesn't matter as far as the race for points at the front is concerned. Now, there is Häkkinen at Eau Rouge. This is a replay. We are on the Williams Renault of David Coulthard on lap 38 out of 44. There it is. Philippe Adams walks in, the Belgian, out of his own home Grand Prix.
So Häkkinen is another problem. It may be that there's a suspension problem. It may be simply that Coulthard was mistaken and maybe hit some of the marbles. We shall have to wait and see just how he goes in the next few laps. He's been mixing it with traffic for the last lap, so this time will not be representative, apart from the fact that he's just left the pits anyway. But that is sure to destabilise Coulthard. There's nothing worse as a driver than wondering if something perhaps is wrong with your car. He'll now be thinking, he'll be looking, he'll be feeling, trying to see, and he's dropping so quickly back from Mika Häkkinen there that I really can't help feel, but there is something that he's not happy about with his Williams car.
Yeah, Mika Häkkinen, of course, who was excluded from the Hungarian Grand Prix, the last one, because of the problem he had with the stewards at the British Grand Prix, will be even more determined than he usually is, and he's usually more determined than almost anybody else, to not only finish this race, but to underline the class. Oh yeah, there's somebody who goes past David Coulthard, so there is no doubt in my mind either that the Scotsman has got a problem with the Williams Renault in the closing stages of the race. I frankly didn't see who it was that went past him, but on lap 39, Schumacher now leads Hill, who is actually lapping faster. Just checking whether... No, he hasn't broken his own lap record. He's just gone round in 1 minute 57.6. The gap is still 10.8 seconds, and Schumacher has responded with a lap in almost exactly the same time as Hill's, which leads me to believe that he's getting all the instructions and information he needs by radio from the pit to just pace himself to his 8th win in 11 races this year.
Now, if you watched some footage earlier on, a picture of the back of Coulthard's car, you would have seen that Williams' rear wing flutter and move as he was going around a corner. But that is quite normal. Do not be alarmed by that. That does not mean it's about to fall off. There is always a degree of essential flex in these things, so it may well be that his problem could be something from the rear suspension. And it also has to be said that it is impossible for a team to do a full and thorough investigation of all of the various parts and the joints and things and the hub bearings on the car. And ultimately, one has to rely on the driver for actually coming in and saying you've got to call it a day if whatever problem it is apparently too dangerous.
Well, in Hungary, the Benetton team said the best possible reply we could give to our many critics in recent weeks is to win the race convincingly. They not
he spins, and it could be that kind of opportunity which could keep. And look, that looks like Blundell, who's got going again. So good news for Mark Blundell. He will have undoubtedly lost a place or two on that, but he's still going. But back to why did they look at the rear wing on that Williams? I suspect that Coulthard may have had some kind of minor gearbox problem that could have just destabilised the back end. It may have locked the wheel or certainly upset the balance of the back of the car. And David Coulthard may well have interpreted that, and that looks a very slowly going Jordan there of Eddie Irvine.
Yes, who is either in 5th or 6th place, or was in 5th and 6th place, as Johnny Herbert moves wide at La Source, lets Damon Hill through. Michael Schumacher is now on lap 43 out of 44, almost within sight of the checkered flag for the first time, again seeing it, this time in Belgium, to increase his World Championship lead over Damon Hill, who looks like finishing second again for the 5th time this year. And that will increase the championship lead of Michael Schumacher from 31 points to 35 points. And then we have to wait and see what happens to him when his case comes up, as it were, in Paris, and his appeal for the 2-race ban for ignoring the black flag at the British Grand Prix comes up in front of the FIA, the governing body of World Motorsport.
Well, with just 2 laps to go, it looks as if, once again, Michael Schumacher has demonstrated that nobody has been able to beat him fair and square on the track this year. And this is a circuit where he should have been at some disadvantage, not having the ultimate horsepower of the Williams, but he's done a tremendous job once again. Mika Hakkinen, though, in 3rd place, adopting a strategy of stopping early, but still just for those 2 tyre stops, and the McLaren running well, the Peugeot engine demonstrating that it really is making progress. This is a circuit where power is important, and it's kept going too, so a good race for McLaren. But David Coulthard, one can't help feel very, very sorry for indeed. He's driven a superb race, it's been a hard charge, he's cut through the traffic well, and he's been deprived the chance of challenging for his first win when clearly he's had some kind of mechanical problem with that Williams.
What an incredible record Schumacher, who is now on his last lap, has at the Belgian Grand Prix. In 1991 he made his debut in the Jordan team, qualified 7th for his first Grand Prix, retired at the start when he burnt his clutch out. The next year, 1992, he won it. Last year he finished second to Damon Hill. This year he's going to win again. He's only a mile or so away from seeing the checkered flag yet again. You can see that the gap between him and Damon Hill has increased because Damon has obviously decided to settle for second place, knowing that he hasn't got a chance of closing the gap on the last lap unless something happened to Michael Schumacher. and knowing the reliability of the Ford Cosworth engine and the chassis that's been put together so well by the Benetton technicians, not to mention Michael Schumacher's superb ability, and he's 25 years old, Michael Schumacher. This is only his 49th Grand Prix, and yet again it's going to be a victory, because it's going to be his 10th victory in all, his 8th victory of this year. There's an increasingly happy Flavio Briatore, and they have again done the best thing they could possibly do to silence their critics. They put them down in Hungary by winning and finishing third. They're going to do exactly the same thing as far as the first place is concerned here in Belgium, and Verstappen is going to finish in 4th position, and Martin Brundle out of the race, of course. And here is Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford waves an arm of victory. He has won the Belgian Grand Prix for the 2nd time in 3 years. An ecstatic Tom Walkinshaw embraces Joan Villadel-Prat, and Flavio Briatore gives a pensive punch of victory. The checkered flag confirms that Damon Hill is in 2nd place, 13.5 seconds behind Schumacher. The championship gap has increased by 4 points. Mika Häkkinen is third. Jos Verstappen is 4th. David Coulthard has finished in 5th position in spite of being stuck in that gear. And I'm happy to say that Mark Blundell, who finished in 5th position in Hungary, has again finished in the points here in Belgium. A lap adrift as a result of going very wide and stopping at La Source. But never mind, he's got a World Championship point for the Tyrrell Yamaha team. 7th Morbidelli, 8th Olivier Panis, 9th Pierluigi Martini, 10th Michele Alboreto, 11th Bernard, 12th Gunal, 13th Herbert, 14th Eddie Irvine, and those are the officially classified finishers. 14 out of the 26 starters finish, and there is the second. There is Michael Schumacher on a replay crossing the line to win the Belgian Grand Prix. A fine race. It really does look as though this combination of the young German, who is stepping very confidently into the shoes of Ayrton Senna as the dominant driver of his day, is unbeatable provided the car keeps going. So again, 44 laps completed, handshakes all round. That's Dick Scammell in the white shirt, who is the Cosworth director, and he's another very happy man, because that's the Ford Cosworth engine's 8th victory in 11 races. 2 wins to Damon Hill in the Williams Renault, 1 win to Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, and Damon Hill finishes 13.5 seconds behind in 2nd place. Very good for Mika Häkkinen, who has shown that his 1 race ban has dulled none of his ability or his hunger. I had a long talk with him yesterday. He said, I'm still very, very hungry to do well. And this hopefully will have assuaged some of his appetite. 3rd position, and that is the 3rd place that Mika Häkkinen has had this year, because he took the same place in San Marino. An excellent 4th for Jos Verstappen, so that means to say that both the Benettons are in the top 4, and both of them were in the top 3 in Hungary. A consolation prize for David Coulthard. He's fought hard through the season to do better than 5th, which he was in Canada. So he's now had 2 5th places and a 6th and 3 retirements in his 6 races. And Mark Blundell takes that final World Championship point for 6th place for Tyrrell Yamaha.
Yeah, so it's been a good race for Benetton, for Williams, and for McLaren too, but big disappointment for the Jordan team, with Barrichello having started from pole position. They clearly would have expected much more than just having Eddie Irvine as the last classified finisher, undoubtedly with some problem down in 14th place. But being accurate, not making mistakes, is of course so desperately important. And in the race about mid-distance there, Rubens Barrichello just understeered off the track. A driver error, it has to be said, and very jubilant Michael Schumacher.
Yes, one of the lovely things about Michael Schumacher, and he really is a super chap, is that he's never at all reluctant to show his joy at winning. This was the national anthem for the winning constructor being Benetton from Enstone. So, a win for Germany, Michael Schumacher. Second place for Britain, Damon Hill. Third place for Finland, Mika Häkkinen. Victory for Benetton, second place for Williams, third place for McLaren. But one has to say, sadly, a very disappointing race for the Ferrari team, with the retirements of Jean Alesi very early in the race, indeed on the third lap, and then Gerhard Berger, who went out of the race after about 22 laps. And we had hoped for so much more. But is the World Championship over with another victory for Schumacher and Benetton? Well, no, it is not. The gap now has been extended by 4 points to 35 points between Schumacher and Hill. But if Schumacher's two-race ban is confirmed in Paris next week, it will give Damon the opportunity to close the gap, and there's a possibility that Benetton might be denied races if they are penalised because of that fuel rig problem that they had at the German Grand Prix. It's not the way that anybody would like to see a Grand Prix being, a World Championship being won, but there you are, those are the rules. So, victory in Belgium for Michael Schumacher, a superb and dominant win. Another second for Damon Hill, an excellent third for Mika Häkkinen, and the world champion, in spite of it not seeming to be that way, is still very much wide open.